My name is D. Arthur Bridgewater, PhD, and that's a mouthful. So many years ago, my students started calling me Dr. D. So that's how I've been known. This is my 39th year at UCLA teaching public speaking. So that's my primary appointment. I also teach a class in the summer, Learning American English and Culture from Movies. So international students coming all around the world to learn about who are Americans. How can I listen to American-style English, speak American-style English through the insights I've gained from film? My whole career, might as well add this, I'm also a licensed psychologist with a private practice in Beverly Hills, so the whole Beverly Hills shrink kind of cliche. How does that fit with everything else I do? It's let's talk. So using the stimulus of the world around us, our past, our memories, the movies we see, the music we hear, to think about and let's talk about it. So in the moment, creating moments while responding to the moments.
What was your background before becoming a professor?
Well, I'm from Indiana, a small town. I was born in the Eisenhower administration, so you can look that up in the historic records. So before I started school, about 3 years old, they said, well, little D, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be the first ambassador to another planet. And they stopped asking me because that's very strange, even by modern
standards.
ideas, very true. Standards was the word I was searching for. And so that's the essence of it. My background in this little town, I always loved difference. And wow, what a big old world. And especially cultural difference. People, different faces from different places is how I typified it. So that little town, going to a major university, Indiana University, the first day when I walked on campus, here was a Japanese person walking with the traditional kimono and the gaita. And I love that. I go, this is home to me. So my background is really that quest for understanding people who are not the same as I am, different from who I am. And so my undergraduate is in playwriting. My master's degrees, I got two, one in playwriting, one in counseling psychology. Came here for the PhD in counseling psychology, which is, again, theater is creating moments. Psychotherapy is creating moments. These intense, emotional, psychological moments, catharsis, that we then think about. That's where insights lie. And so that's really my background.
So besides teaching, what's something you care about or are passionate about?
Travel. I like traveling, kind of a segue of what I'm saying, going to different places. Now that I'm Dr. D and everyone knows Dr. D and that's who I am, I like putting myself in different settings where, okay, who am I? This is a new setting. Let me discover parts of myself. I particularly like ancient cultures and ancient civilizations, so I particularly am fascinated with the Maya. So I like traveling to Central America, Mexico, and studying ancient Mayan sites.
When was the last time you traveled to
5 years ago, because recently I've been very involved with different things. I've seen all the major Mayan sites except for Copan. It's my favorite. I'm saving it for last to savor it. So what I like to do is spend a day or two just ambling around in the Acropolis, like the city where the pyramids are, the central city, are these different sites, and try to figure it out, like what would it have been like to have lived there, and how did they come up with it, and what was the meaning for it, including when I was at Chichen Itza, there's a large pyramid called the El Castillo, and so I walked to the top, and there was this platform, a little low-lying platform. I go, that's a performance platform, that's a dance platform, and I clapped my hands, and it was a perfect echo. I go, I knew it. So you have the Ahau, the Lord, Our Lady of Tikal, of Chichen Itza, Copan, wherever, and on the top, and then it was a performance art piece.
What's the best thing that you learned about the Mayans through your travels.
Achievement. I think that's the best thing I learn about anyone. Wow, aren't we a great species? You know, in the middle of this rainforest, this jungle, you cut down all that vegetation, you can really then build, without the use of the wheel, these incredible objects. The Polynesians inhabiting every island in the Pacific, these great achievements that we should really bear witness to.
My next question is, how did you end up becoming a professor, and what made you want to become one?
My life has been really concerted, disciplined effort and serendipity. And so every step of my life, it just, well, this seems like an idea. This seems good. Undergraduate, small town, went to a large university, Bloomington, Indiana. I go, I need to have a big city kind of experience. So I went to New York, experimented with theater, loved it. I go, lots of people, they waste their whole lives, and it's a waste because they never really get to do theater. I'll go back to the university, become a professor, teach playwriting, and then do my own productions on the side. So while I was doing that, the next phase is I got into counseling psychology, as well as being a person involved with theater. And then I came out here to combine them using theater techniques and therapy. While I was back in Indiana, I taught public speaking. When I came here, I go, I have these 2 years of experience, have a master's degree, getting my PhD. Do you need anyone? So I started teaching here at UCLA in 1980, while getting my PhD. Then post-graduation, being a therapist, teaching public speaking. And now I'm probably going to get back into theater. Interesting enough at this late stage. The money is all set, everything is all set. So I really like theater a lot. Different ideas when I moved back to Bloomington, different places to get involved with community theater there. Yeah, so I guess the answer to your question is just life is such a path and a journey. And so I became a professor. It's a great life. Get me involved with a lot of things, the money, retirement, da-da-da-da. But then more importantly, it's just a wonderful way to keep alive and interactional. And then now I've done that, how can I bring that to the next phase and the next phase and the next phase?
So transitioning to the section about advice to students.
Okay, so I'm transitioning.
So how can we succeed academically, especially given everything else we have to balance? Work, extracurriculars, and fun in the quarter system.
All right. I guess we start with how can we be successful at, and then you have to define academics. In 2018, which is when this is being filmed, what does success in academics mean at that point? Well, I think it's never been as so acute as it is right now that the real world and the academic world are interactional. You have to prepare yourself for the real world, and yet you can't let yourself be so into the real world that you don't prepare yourself with the scholarly background of academics. So maybe being academically successful is engaging in all of these things and learning to balance them and discovering in our own individual way how to really get the most value out of life by balancing all of these things.
So would you say, like, normally we think about academics as like our classes, and then we think about like student organizations as like extracurriculars.
Right.
But would you say that it would, when we're talking about succeeding academically, we should put those together?
I think we have to, and it's kind of 19th century thinking, you know, academics is the classes, but in the classes themselves, they should really take into account the outside world, where it's academics should be an informed, judicious understanding of what's going on in the world, and the world should really form the subject matter of what we want to really study and develop an understanding of. So I think our classes, the community, UCLA is, they should all be this amalgam. To, you know, just to get really concrete with this, if you want to be academically successful today, You've got to be on a stepping stone. My undergraduate, my master's, my PhD, however long you're in the academia, professional school you go to, it's a stepping stone to the next phase, the next phase, the next phase. Be an entrepreneur. Everyone has to be an entrepreneur now. When I'm talking with students and, well, what do you need to be? Have that entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe you'll never do a startup yourself, but you still have the creativity of discovering new aspects of it, revamping your profession, or say as a lawyer, for instance, or a doctor, or a business person. And then the other thing, besides being an entrepreneur, you have to really be global in your scope. It's a world culture now, so being touched by the world and touching the world. If you become entrepreneurial in your spirit and have a sense of all humanity is what we're talking about across the globe, then you'll be a success.
What's a common misconception you feel that students have about professors, and how would you suggest students go about navigating their relationships with their professors?
In general, I guess the classism, where they're a professor, I'm a student, so I can't be interactional with them. If we're a professor, if we're that educated, we have that much of a background, we should be the number one people who are most available to communicate that to people outside of academia, but definitely for our students. So I don't think people who are students should assume that professors are unobtainable and distant iconographic figures. And if they do get into a class where that is the case, they should think about taking another class. Teaching to me is facilitating learning, so you set up the structure of the classroom, which I think should have a definite syllabus, definite subject matter, but it's now called a flipped class, where you as a student do a lot of the research work outside the background, and then it's a dynamic interaction in the classroom, and then that should hold over to office hours as well. To me, academics, to me, education is this living tradition, going back to Socrates, who started it all.
To wrap up, do you have any last words or non-academic pieces of advice you think new students should know?
Yes, I will. This is my sage answer to the advice I want everyone to take. Don't take anyone's advice. We have to take advice, and we should seek advice from people, but it's our lives ultimately. And so I guess the message in that is the irony. Take my advice, don't take my advice, but you have to take the advice, even if the advice is not taking the advice. So take it in, but realize you need to weigh it, get a lot of people's different opinions, and then make your own courageous choices. So as quickly as you can be in that role of a catalyst for others and advising others.
What advice would you give to a third-year student and someone who's at a different stage in their life, in their academic undergraduate life, than an incoming student?
I guess it really is quite a junction, because you have to decide whether you're going to continue to graduate school, professional school, go into the real world, whatever that means, situations of business. So first, just the practicality of where do I want to go? And then that would have to be based on looking at your past and plotting your trajectory. These are the points where I know that it was meaningful to me, I felt enriched in my life, and so 1 or 2 points, if you got 2 points, that plots a trajectory. So then ask yourself, where do I want to go next? And then underneath it all with that is, I have no idea. You recall, my guiding philosophy in life is just being very determined, and this is the next step, this is the next step. But also serendipity. It just seems right to me to go for this and to go for this. Now you shared you're from Dubai. Do you want to go back to Dubai?
Right now, personally, I want to like explore a different city, like possibly a different country as well, because I grew up there. I lived there for 10 years, and I feel like that stage of my life has been completed. Like that chapter of my life has been closed, and I think it was like a very natural way of like closing that chapter and like moving on. But I think like it's time to like go somewhere else and go somewhere new. I think that's something that really excites me.
There is this old analogy, of that person who climbs the mountain, and so much effort going into that. They have to find their own individual, what route works for them to get to the top of the mountain. And what a glorious moment to be on the summit and rejoice in that moment and the exhilaration of all the effort paying off. But really what it leads to is awareness of the next mountain range and the next one.
It was really great talking to you.
Well, ditto. It was wonderful talking
Thank
with
you so much for taking some time out of your like busy life to give us all this advice.
Thank you for recording me for all posterity.